documentation here where I signed a paper to the DA releasing him of over $1,000 in arrearages, but he was supposed to remain paying me child support.
Can I see that, please?
That's a copy from the district attorney's file.
This was back in 1996.
Right. Okay, that's what I'm getting at. Okay, so then in 96, he was supposed to continue to pay child support. And then in 98, he again got into arrearages. And I again released him of child support.
Can I see that, please?
And it was September of 98 that I released him of paying child support, but he agreed to help me pay for clothes and stuff for the kids.
Okay, just a minute. How much was your support order back in 1996, sir?
I have it right here.
$158 a month.
Well, that's not a lot of money for two children.
No, it's not, Your Honor.
There came a time, sir, in 1996 when you fell in arrears in the amount of $1,345, according to this document. Can you tell me why that is?
Well, unfortunately, I've been disabled, Your Honor.
How did you support yourself?
Through odd jobs.
Odd jobs, right.
Yeah.
So from odd jobs, you pay $158 a month for your two children.
Yes, I did. Yes, I
No,
did.
you didn't. You fell into arrears of $1,345. Just answer my question. Is it correct that your former wife released you from child support in the amount of $1,345 in 1996?
Yes, she did, but she also received a van back in 96 for the $1,400, Your Honor.
What do you mean a van?
Yes, I have a document here if you wish to look at it.
That van was ordered to me in L.A. when we got separated. That van was ordered to me because I had the children and the judge ordered me to have the van for transportation for the children.
Well, this does say that this release of the van had to do with the release of child support payments, madam.
Right, but he was
Okay.
supposed to continue to pay child support.
Continue to pay?
Right.
After that?
Right.
Okay, so
And
that
he got-
this piece of paper that you showed me releasing him from child support was really covered by the van. But then he was supposed to continue to pay.
And he got into
Did he
arrears again.
pay? All right, so let's forget this.
Okay.
All right, let's forget that piece. After 1996, did he pay his child support?
Up until September when he got into arrearages again and I released him again. That's that letter you have there. In 99, beginning of 99, I was supposed to go to the DA and have him start him paying child support again. That's when I had my personal problems like he was talking about, okay? At that time, we made a verbal agreement because we both decided we didn't want to disrupt our kids' schooling. They go to very good schools. So we made a verbal agreement that he would keep the kids Monday through Friday to keep the kids in school. They would come home on the weekends. That started in March. They came home on the summer, and they went back when school started again at the end of August. I have receipts here from 1999. It totals almost to $1,400 that I spent on my children. I also work. I supplied her medical coverage. I supplied dental coverage. I supplied vision coverage. I paid for Eric's glasses in 1999. They were $130. I have a court order here that he's supposed to pay half of that, which he never did. I finally put my foot down and said, I'm not releasing him anymore. He has not been helping me. In December, when Christmas vacation came of 99, the boys came home with me for Christmas vacation. I didn't let them go back. My husband has been helping me transport them back and forth to school. He's asked him to help for transportation. He says, no, I will not do her any favors. He says, that's not a favor to her. Those are your kids. I've ordered him to start paying child support again. February, he was supposed to pay me $158. He only paid me $79. March, he was supposed to pay $158. He only paid me $79. May, he was supposed to pay...
Yes, Your Honor. Okay. And she's well aware of why. On February 5th, Your Honor, I was involved in a motorcycle accident. Okay.
How were you on a motorcycle?
Because I do funeral escorts.
He's supposed to be disabled.
Just a second. You do what?
Funeral escorts, Your Honor.
I thought you were disabled.
I am. Okay.
And you were riding a motorcycle?
Well, I don't have to lift it or push it. The individual that I'm working for did not have workman's compensation coverage. So I did not have an income. And she's well aware of that.
Mr. Astorga, I want you to listen to me. I'm just playing around. I have divided $158 by 4.3. That's how many weeks there are in a month.
Yes, ma'am.
That comes to $37 a week.
Right.
Divided by 2.
Right.
That is $18 per child a week. Let's divide that by 7. $2.62 a day is what the court has ordered you to pay.
Okay.
$2.62 a day. Now, it appears to me that there has been a long pattern by you of not paying child support.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
In the year that the children were with you, you spent more on a computer than you did the entire year before on child support.
Yes, ma'am.
And later today,
My propane lines have been cut. He put nails in the driveway. I have pictures of nails thrown in my driveway. He was arrested for willful cruelty to a child when he tried to kill my son. He stuck on his throat.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. John Astorga says his ex-wife Paula Dela Cruz owes him for expenses when their children lived with him.
Did your former wife pay for the boys' clothing?
She has an 18-year-old at home that she was also providing clothing for, too.
Did she provide
I don't know.
for the boys while they were living with you clothing?
No.
She
That's
didn't?
not true.
Just a minute.
No,
She
Your
didn't?
Honor.
You bought them their clothing?
I bought most of the clothes. I have
Well,
receipts here, Your Honor.
Good. Let me see the receipts.
Can I show you mine?
Okay, these are all the receipts of the... Okay, this is a computer. Wait a minute. This is an electrical... There was also a computer that was purchased during the duration of my children's stay because they required computer-generated homework.
So you bought them a computer?
Yes, Your Honor.
Did you send it home with them when they went back to live with their mother?
No.
So you have it?
I have the computer, yes, but
So
they
why
do come over and use it periodically.
So why didn't you, if the children are with their mother, and you purchased this computer for their computer-generated homework, and they're now living with their mother, why didn't you give them their computer?
Why didn't I?
Yeah.
Well, I felt I wasn't being compensated. I mean, it's
All
bad
right.
enough
What do
I
you
had my
mean
children for a whole
Just a second.
year.
What do you mean being compensated?
Well,
How do you compensate for your children? How much did you spend on the computer, sir?
I paid for the computer $851, Your Honor.
When did you buy the computer?
I bought it back in August 22nd of '99.
And then you paid all of these amounts for the children's clothing.
Yes, ma'am.
So explain to me why, sir, that in the year 1999, you spent more on a computer than you did the entire year before on child support when the children were living with their mother. Explain that to me.
I will
that
explain that to you.
That you're able to do that.
Okay, the reason being is because my children were living with me on a week basis and staying with her on weekends.
Sir, I'm not talking about that year. I'm saying
No,
to you in
that
the
was-
year that the children were with you.
Yes, ma'am.
You weren't doing anything more that year because you were disabled than you were doing this year. So
Okay.
explain to me, sir, how you were able to pay off $1,000 and all these other bills for your children.
Okay, I will explain to you.
Just a second.
Okay.
And since the children are back with their mother, you haven't been able to pay $2.62 for each of your children for child support.
I just explained that to you. February 5th, I was involved in a motorcycle accident.
How do you support yourself now?
Right now, I have money saved.
You have money saved?
I had.
Mr. Astorga, let me explain something to you, sir. You've been getting away with murder since 1996.
I don't think so, Your
Oh,
Honor.
I think you've been getting away with murder since
No.
1996, sir. It costs more than $2.62 a day to feed my dog.
Okay.
More, to
I
feed my
understand
dog, and my
that.
dog weighs 5 pounds. And you have the audacity to tell me that you believe that $158 a month for 2 teenage boys is a reasonable share for a parent to pay for their children and not pay it. And you want her to pay you for the 8 months that the boys were living
No.
with you? Get out of here. Case dismissed.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I'm taking him back to court. We have a court date in August, and the judge is going to order him to find a job, so he's not.
And now the next case.
All parties on Gallo versus McDonald. Step forward, please.
44-year-old gas station attendant David Gallo is suing his former longtime girlfriend, 32-year-old financial consultant Jeanette McDonald, for half the value of the furniture they bought while living together. Jeanette is countersuing for harassment.
You and the defendant were in a relationship, according to your papers, for 13 years. And you have a child together, a girl.
Correct.
How old is your daughter?
She's 10.
According to your complaint, Mr. Gallo, when you separated, your arrangement was that the defendant could keep all of the household furnishings.
That's correct, ma'am.
And in exchange, you would keep 3 cars.
Yes, ma'am.
Sometime after you separated, you loaned her some money.
Yes, ma'am.
And when she didn't pay you back, you filed a small claims case against her.
No, ma'am. She wrote me a post-dated check on it that bounced twice.
Whatever. You filed a small claims case
Yes, ma'am.
against her. And she filed a countersuit for half the vehicles.
Yes, ma'am.
Then it gets a little more complicated. On the day that that trial was set, according to you, your brother became ill? Or
Well, my brother was in intensive care from a head wound. He died the day before court.
Okay. And you called her and you agreed to postpone the case.
Yes, ma'am.
But she went to court anyway and got a default judgment against you for $3,500.
Yes, ma'am.
So that you now want half the cost of the furniture that you estimated $10,000, so you want $5,000 because she breached the agreement.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. McDonald, you have a counterclaim because you say that since the separation, Mr. Gallo has filed numerous lawsuits against you, causing you all kinds of harassment and stress. When did you separate?
We separated in December of 1996.
And at that time, he took the cars.
Your Honor, the story that I just heard you say is absolutely the first time I've ever heard that in my life. There was no agreement for cars versus furniture. This is the first time I'm hearing that.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
He was arrested for willful cruelty to a child when he tried to kill my son. He stepped on his throat.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. David Gallo says ex-girlfriend Jeanette McDonald owes him for half the value of their shared furniture. Jeanette says this is David's third frivolous lawsuit.
Did he, in fact, take cars at the time you separated?
There were cars left, yes.
And you took the furniture?
Some furniture, yes.
Did there come a time when he gave you some money after 1996?
Not that I recall.
But he did file a small claims case against you?
Yes.
You did then file a counterclaim having to do with the cars
Yes.
that were left 3 years before.
Yes.
That doesn't sound right to me, Miss McDonald. That sounds like to me, if he's going to give it to me, I'm going to give it to him.
When I left him, he started filing suits against me. and
When was
such
the first lawsuit that he filed against you?
In 99. However, prior to that, he was arrested for willful cruelty to a child when he tried to kill my son. He stepped on his throat.
That was in 1996, according to you.
Yes. And that's
Miss
when I left.
McDonald, pay careful attention to me, madam. The first lawsuit that he filed against you was this lawsuit for $800.
Yes.
And you chose to retaliate by filing a counterclaim for $3,500 for property that, even if you had part interest in, you had really abandoned over 3 years. I find that suspect, Miss McDonald. Now, did you or did you not have a conversation with Mr. Gallo about his brother being ill and then dying?
No, I did not.
You mean there was never any understanding between the two of you that he was not going to appear on the adjourned date?
No, he called me the day before our court hearing. And he said, yeah, I'm having personal problems, so I'm not going to make it up there. And I said, well, what do you mean? Well, I continued it, and there's nothing you can do about it. So I called the court, and I said, can he just continue the day before? And they said, no, only the judge can grant the continuance.
Had he made a request for a continuance?
Evidently, he had faxed the court a letter saying that something, but I found out about that later.
So he did, in fact, call you and tell you that he was moving for a continuance?
Yes.
Because he had personal problems?
Yes.
Did his brother, in fact, die?
I don't know.
Well, you know his brother. I mean,
No,
they were
I
together
don't.
for 13 years.
I never met him.
She has met my brother, Your Honor.
In any event, she went there and she got a judgment against you for $3,500, which I believe,
Yes, sir.
which I believe is bogus. The only thing that I can do with regard to that case, Mr. Gallo, is to make you whole, sir. Making you whole would give you a judgment for $3,500. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Now let's get to your counterclaim, Mr. McDonald. You say he has filed numerous cases against you. I'd like to see them, please.
The second one he filed was for $2,450, half of household furnishings at time of separation. That was dismissed because he filed it in the wrong venue, and so no action was taken after that.
Okay, so that's the second one. That was after you got the judgment against him for $3,500.
Correct.
Okay. And what's the next one?
Is this one for $5,000 for, again, half of the household items after separation with a different separation date.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Let me tell you what I find, Ms. McDonald. That $3,500 counterclaim that you filed was just to get even, and that was the first lawsuit that he filed against you in small claims court. The first, according to you.
Lawsuit, yes, but the harassment has been vandalism to my house. My propane lines have been cut. He put nails in the driveway. I have pictures of nails thrown in my driveway. He does everything he can to harass and make my life miserable.
The one lawsuit in small claims court was about the $800. And if he hadn't lost that, my sense was that he wouldn't file the rest of them over the furniture. In any event, on your lawsuit, sir, I am awarding you $3,500. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
And on your counterclaim, I'm dismissing it. That's it.
Adult homemaker Kathy Jones and her husband Robert Jones are suing Kathy's ex-husband, 39-year-old delivery man Louis Serpa, for his share of their daughter's graduation expenses.
Order. All rise. Your Honor, this is case number 160 on the calendar in the matter of Jones versus Serpa. President sworn in, Judge. You may be seated.
Mrs. Jones, the defendant is your former husband, or plaintiff is your present husband. When were you divorced from the defendant?
1982?
1982?
1992.
92.
1992. And how many children do you have together?
3.
How old are they?
One's going to be 18, one's going to be 16, and one's going to be 13.
The 18-year-old is a girl?
Yes, she is.
Lives with you?
Yes, she does.
Where do the other 2 children live?
My 16-year-old daughter's with me, and my son lives with my husband, ex-husband.
So the 2 minor children are split up.
Right.
Your lawsuit seeks half of your daughter's, your 18-year-old daughter's, graduation expenses, a gown, prom tickets. Right now, there is a court order that says neither one of you are responsible for the support of the children because each of you has a minor child living with you. Is that right? Was there an agreement between the 2 of you to share these high school graduation expenses?
Yes, there was.
Well, tell me about the agreement.
I never agreed to anything.
Just a minute. She's going to tell me. I'm going to give you an opportunity.
I asked Louis if he could help me out with some of the expenses. He told me he would send me a couple $100s in a couple weeks, and he never did. And then he told me that Jennifer was no longer his responsibility.
Okay. So according to you, at best, he said to you, I'll send you a couple of $100.
That's what he
That's
said.
$200.
All I wanted him to do was help me out.
Okay. Well, my concern is that you're suing for $500.
Because now I'm suing for half, because, you know, he is a biological father. He should at least help.
Yeah, we just basically wiped out our savings account and everything else through, for this whole prom and graduation thing and everything else. And
Mr. Jones, one of the things that concerned me in Mr. Serpa's answer was that you chose his daughter's graduation from high school as the time to serve him with a small claims suit.
that's right.
Why did you do that?
Well, because he lives in Bakersfield and we're in Sacramento, and otherwise we'd have to pay to have him served. And he's a truck driver. You know, it's hard to track.
Well, how much do you think it would cost you to have him served?
I'm not sure what they charge. I think it's like $35 or something like that. There.
Right, to have him served.
But then the sheriff's
Right.
got to track him down and everything
Just
else.
a minute. Not so hard to track him down. You have an apartment?
I have a house.
And you have a 13-year-old living with you?
Yes.
It's not so hard to track him down.
But Louis is not there all the time.
I don't care whether he's there all the time or not. Who was present when you served him with these papers?
My 16-year-old daughter,
My 13-year-old son.
yeah,
And what about the graduate?
she was already down coming in. She didn't know that it was being done.
But it was done in front of the other 2 children.
Right.
That was a big mistake. You don't inflict your anger on an event that's supposed to be a joy for children by serving their father with a small claim suit. I assume the small claim suit was for this graduation expense.
Yeah.
Right. They actually used my 16-year-old daughter because she came over with one of his friends and she introduced me to him, and then he served me with the paperwork.
What had you told your 16-year-old daughter about this person?
Oh, this was a neighbor of ours across the street that served the papers.
Did you tell your 16-year-old that her father was going to be served with papers by this person?
Yes.
She knew.
Well, tell me what you told her. Who spoke to her?
Oh, you mean when she went up to introduce our neighbor
Listen,
to her?
before you got to the graduation, there had to be a plan, a plot.
Actually, no, she didn't know it at the time when we got there.
We
didn't know how to get the papers to him, so I asked Laura if she wouldn't mind taking Rodney over there, because Rodney wanted to see Nick anyway.
Okay. If she wouldn't mind taking Rodney, your next-door neighbor, over to her father.
Right.
Go ahead.
And then that's when Rodney gave him the papers.
So is now what you're telling me that your daughter did not know he was going to give her the papers?
She knew. I mean, she
So
didn't want
when-
to go over there, but she did it anyway.
What do you mean she didn't want to go over there?
Well, because she just hesitated, but she went over there.
What do you mean she hesitated? She didn't hesitate. She said something to you. She said, I don't want to do this?
No.
What did she
She
say?
just kind of gave me that look like, well, Mom, but she went. But she didn't say nothing. She just
She sounds like a good kid to me. You had no right to do that. You people are not doing the right thing to your children. You're not.
Neither is he.
No, this was a very bad thing to do to your children. This was a very bad thing, far worse than a couple $100 for a prom dress or a graduation ring or anything else. It's a far worse thing to enlist the aid of your 16-year-old who really didn't want to do it. She didn't want to be involved with it. You made her a co-conspirator in what you decided to do, which was to serve him papers on the date of your daughter's graduation. There isn't a question in my mind that your 18-year-old who graduated knew about what had happened. She may have known about it afterwards.
She knew before. She told me that it was going to happen.
She told you that it was going to
She
happen.
knew that you were going to get her papers, but she didn't know when that day.
She didn't know it was that day. She
Right.
just knew it was going to happen.
So you think that she was happy or not happy when she found out that her father was served on her graduation?
Well, I'm sure she wasn't happy about it.
So why did you do it?
I didn't have any other
What-
way to give it to him.
Of course you did. You mean you don't
Am I
see a
supposed to drive
13-year
down there and give it to him?
Absolutely. If it's a choice between doing it on graduation day and getting in a car and driving down with your next door neighbor and serving him with the papers, that's what you do.
But then we got to go through the
I
problem
wasn't
of trying
happy
to
about
find
it being
him and
done that
trying to
day.
track him down. I mean, he was already in Sacramento. He was there, you know.
Case is dismissed, that's all.
Why did I excuse? You may step out.
There's no way of tracking him down, you know. I mean,
No comment.
My daughter was really just devastated about me getting served. I went down after graduation. I told her, and she was really devastated. She was hurt.
And now the next case.
All parties on Coleman versus Smith. Step forward, please.
20-year-old sales rep Shireen Coleman is suing her former landlord, 63-year-old retired secretary Gloria Smith, for slander, harassment, and invasion of privacy. Gloria is countersuing for harassment, mental anguish, and destruction of property.
Ms. Coleman, you rented a piece of property, residential property, from the defendant and claimed that she turned out to be the landlady from hell. According to you, she slandered you, she maligned you, she invaded your privacy. Ms. Smith, on the other hand, said that you were really a problem tenant and that the only time that you filed a lawsuit against her was after she had moved to have you evicted. When did you move to have her evicted?
On the 9th of June.
Has that matter been heard
Oh,
yet?
yes, the sheriff has already posted the property on June 13th.
What does that
or
mean?
July
posted?
13th.
What does that mean?
That means that they came out and gave the property back to me. They moved out that morning.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
She called me a drug addict. She told me that I was a lowlife.
They admitted they were doing drugs when they moved in.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Shireen Coleman says her former landlord, Gloria Smith, slandered her, claiming she's a drug dealer.
When did you move in?
We moved in the 19th, which was a Friday.
Of May.
Yeah, I have the rental agreement here, as well as the receipt for the money paid.
Okay, she doesn't say that you didn't pay the rent. Is that right?
That's right.
There's no dispute about that. So you tell me what your problems were with her that you believe a court would compensate you for.
Okay, she slandered me, Your Honor, to my own boss, okay? This is my employer right here. She called me a drug addict. She told me that I was a
Just
lowlife.
wait 1 second. She didn't tell this to you. She told this to your boss.
Correct.
Okay. Would you step up, please? Tell me your name.
Donna Stewart.
You want to tell me about a conversation that you had with the defendant?
Shireen called me to come over and be with her to pay the rent for a witness because she'd be giving her a hard time. She gave me the cash for the rent. I wrote a check to her. When we went over, their neighbors, right next door to each other, she started screaming. They were drug addicts, losers. They couldn't make any money. The boss had to pay the bills.
Didn't you find it odd that Miss Coleman asked you to go with her to pay her rent?
No,
Why not?
because I know the story. It goes back before that.
Right, because there was a pre-existing situation that existed between these two people.
Yes.
So it is peculiar to have somebody come with you to ask
I
you to pay your
suppose so,
rent.
yes.
Of course. So that they had a problem before. Now, were you aware of the fact that Miss Smith wanted Miss Coleman out of the property?
No, not at that time.
Well, she did want you out of the property, correct?
This was before that.
Miss Coleman, what kind of problem did you fear when you went to hand her the rent check?
That she wasn't going to accept my rent for some
Right.
reason.
Right. If she wasn't going to accept your rent check, then you must have known that she wanted you out of the premises, right?
Yes.
What led you to believe that?
Because her actions toward us.
Why don't you just have a seat? Because this guy's got ants in his pants. He's
Well, no,
not
I
gonna get up here. Why
lived
don't
there
you-
with her. I lived there with her.
This is my
And the
fiance.
problem was the day that
He
we
is-
tried to pay the rent, I removed the fascia board on the bottom of the house. Okay, when I removed the board, the stucco on the house fell all the way down to the chicken wire. We have pictures of it here to show you. When I did that, I told Gloria that I couldn't fix it. She needed to get a professional to repair it. She said she was going to repair it with a can of concrete fix-all and stuff, some newspaper in there. So
What
therefore,
did you take
that
stuff off for?
she asked me to remove it. We were going to repair it and
That's
paint.
before.
This is pictures of it before I took it off.
And here's pictures after.
And here's pictures after I took it off. That was in the agreement that we were going to remove them, paint, and apply new ones.
And what date was this?
The day we paid our rent, the next rent.
It was the 5th of June. This was before that we received the eviction notice.
Okay, and Lee had approached me and asked me for the rent.
Okay. Now, Miss Smith, did you, in fact, do you acknowledge, in fact, that you said to this lady when she went to give you the check that she and or her boyfriend were drug addicts?
I never had a conversation with her. She only brought over a check on June 20th. After the eviction time, she brought a cop with her and demanded me to come get the rent. And then she says, do I have to take you to court to force you to take the rent money?
Okay.
And I have the police report. in
Well,
motion.
this could be resolved by showing, you say that you went to pay the rent on June 5th.
Which I have the
Show me
receipt
either
for.
the canceled check of June 5th.
Here's the receipt from Miss Smith.
From Gloria and Lee.
Yeah,
it was June
Because Lee had
20th.
given us the receipt to
problem
begin
was.
with. And I said I needed a receipt from Gloria because Lee didn't have nothing to do with our rental agreement, landlord, co-owner, nothing. So therefore,
This is dated June 5th for $150, And there's another one dated June 5th for another $150.
There's one for the 19th. No?
When Lee accepted the check, he marked cash, and he signed it. I further asked Gloria, can you please sign it? Because you had told me previously you didn't want him on...
How much was your whole rent?
Our whole
$700.
rent for the first month was $550. She offered to break it up in 2 payments, $400 on the 20th and $150 on the 5th, for the first month only.
So far, is that correct?
So far, that's right.
Okay, because I do have a check for $400 on the 19th, and I have a receipt, 150, 2 payments of 150 on the 5th of June.
Right, there's only one payment there.
Okay, so how much was the check that you gave her?
150?
Yes.
Yes.
150?
Yes, ma'am.
So you did have a conversation with her?
No, they got me over the check. I have not talked with that lady, except to tell her to get off my property when they came onto my property illegally.
Who came onto your property?
Miss Alvarez and her husband climbed over my fence that's marked posted, no trespassing.
That's not true.
And I have witnesses to that effect.
Where?
Well, they couldn't come today
Then
because
I'm not
I have...
interested. Then I'm not interested.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You telling me you didn't allow anybody who was using drugs, and they said to you, we used to use drugs, but we don't anymore?
Right.
You're fibbing, Miss Smith.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Shireen Coleman says her former landlord, Gloria Smith, slandered her, claiming she's a drug dealer.
What was the problem that you were having with these people when they moved in? I mean,
When they first moved in, they seemed very nice. I mean, they come across that way. Within a couple of days, they even admit they partied during the middle of the night.
What do you mean they admit that they partied during the night?
Well, they said they'd rather laugh and joke and drink in the middle of the night. They played a joke on the neighbor behind the house. And there's a little green light that they had on when they first moved in.
Yeah.
And the police said, that's a warning light, you better get rid of them, because that can mean illegal activity in the police terminology, and I could lose my home.
Barbecue is a party, Your Honor?
At
I
3 in
mean,
the morning.
we sat out on the patio and had barbecue and drank beer, yes. This is one of our neighbors, if I could call her, please.
Miss Tonya? She is one of our neighbors who live across the way. She is also a witness to Mrs. Smith's previous activities with all of her neighbors. Every tenant that comes in there,
I don't want
they
to
get
hear about.
evicted.
I don't want to hear about you.
Okay. And she
She's the one that
lives
she's
across the way.
witnessed.
Your Honor, if I may.
No, just a minute. Are you related to any of these people?
No.
You're just a neighbor. And how long have you been a neighbor of the defendants?
I lived in the duplexes across the way.
Okay.
And I've been there about going on 2 years.
Okay. You have anything to contribute to this case?
When we first moved in, she'd put a note on our car for destruction of property, was going to have us arrested.
I don't want to hear about that. I want to
okay.
hear about this lady. Did you ever hear the defendant slander Miss Coleman?
Yes, she was yelling about being the drug addicts.
You heard that?
Yes.
When?
There was like 2 occasions
Who was she yelling at?
at people that was like coming in and from her yard. I mean, just standing out there hollering.
Okay. You have a cause of action here, Miss Coleman, for invasion of privacy.
That's correct.
Okay. You want to explain that to me?
She has seen Miss Tanner in my home when I am not there.
Did you?
Yes, I did.
On which date?
You know, I don't know the exact date. I always sit out on my front step, and I seen her go inside of the house when they were not there. But I didn't know.
Okay, but you don't know whether she had asked for permission or not?
No, that's why I
because you
didn't-
don't know the dates.
Right.
Miss Coleman, did you in fact give permission to the defendant to go into your apartment on certain dates to do repairs?
She gave me the 24-hour notice, and on those days, I was home the whole time that she said she would be there. She never came in. Other than that, I have not given her permission to enter my house.
Your Honor, there's something I'd like to say about her witness, if I may. She was subpoenaed by the Superior Court of Riverside to appear in court on my behalf because this is the second tenant she's gone to court to lie for.
I'm not so sure she's lying. I'm not so sure that either one of you has a cause of action. And I'm not so sure that you weren't permitted to go into the apartment, whether she was home or not, to do repairs. But I am concerned, Ms. Smith, quite frankly, about the statement that I do believe that because of perhaps something that you heard from the police about a green light as being cause of illegal activity, and they had a green light outside of their house, that you, in fact, said to other people that the plaintiff and or her fiancé were drug addicts. I believe you said that.
No, ma'am.
Oh, no, I believe you said that.
No, ma'am.
Well, I'm the judge.
I know.
I'm the judge. And I'm
know,
telling you, you
but-
look like a very nice lady, but I
know,
believe
but-
you got mad, and I believe that you called them drug addicts to other people, and you have no right to do that. You have a right to take them to court, and you have the right to have them evicted, which you did. The only thing that I am going to address here is the issue of slander.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
There is some defense to slander if the accusation that you made, which was calling them drug addicts, was true. So if you wish to tell me what proof you had that either of these two people were drug addicts, then that's a defense. You want to tell me?
Well, they admitted they were doing drugs when they moved in.
Who did they admit that to?
Judy and I.
Let me
They
hear
wanted a
that.
second chance.
Let me hear that. Come on, let me hear it. I want to hear
They
it.
just said we've been doing drugs, but we're trying to get clean.
That is not true, Your Honor.
And to give them a second
Somebody
chance.
Why would someone who comes to rent a house from you tell you, unless you were taking them in from a facility, shh, quiet, Ms. Smith, come and tell you that they were both recovering drug addicts and they wanted a second chance?
Because we told them we do not allow anyone who were doing drugs on the property.
So are you telling me you didn't allow anybody who was using drugs? That was a statement that you made for them, and they said to you, we used to use drugs, but we don't anymore?
Right, we're
You're
getting
fibbing,
out.
Ms. Smith. You're fibbing. Big time. Maybe a nice lady, but a nice lady who's not telling the truth. And I find that you did, in fact, you may have had cause to evict them. You have an absolute right to go to court and have your property returned to you, which you did. You have no right, without proof, to call somebody a drug addict, to their employer or to a neighbor. And on that charge alone, I'm awarding the plaintiffs $2,000. That's all. Thank you.
All
Judge.
these are excused. May step out.
Yes.
Salesman Ronald Carter is suing his ex-girlfriend, 23-year-old nurse Catherine Overby, for a down payment on a car. Catherine has a countersuit, claiming Ronald assaulted her with a knife.
Order. All rise. Your Honor, this is case number 200 on the calendar, the matter of Carter versus Overby.
How are you, Bird?
Good, Judge. Parties have been sworn in, Your Honor. You may be seated. Folks, have seats, please.
Mr. Carter, according to your complaint, you and the defendant decided to start to live together. You were living in one city, she was living in another city. You joined her where she was living, and you needed a car. According to you, you went shopping for a car. You gave her $1,000 towards the deposit for the car. So far, correct?
Yes, correct.
You lived together for a while. It didn't work out. She kept the car. You want your money back.
Yes.
You have a counterclaim. Counterclaim is on the day that you decided to ultimately break up, Mr. Carter became very violent, and there was an incident in the car that involved not only an assault, but certain destruction of your property, correct?
Correct.
When did you decide to purchase this car together?
In February.
And you had not yet moved down to where the defendant was living?
That's correct.
Correct. And you went shopping for the car, and what kind of car did you decide to buy?
It was a 97 Toyota Camry.
Did you go together?
We went together to pick out the car. When we did the agreement and all the dealer papers, this was done. Oh, okay.
Everything is in your name?
Correct.
You say from the day the car came off the lot, he drove it?
Correct.
How long did you drive the car, sir?
1 month.
To March?
Yep.
Is that when you broke up?
Yes.
When was the first car payment due?
It was the end of March. I'm not sure on the exact date.
Do you know?
We purchased the car on 2/23. The first car payment was due on 3/23, which I paid in full myself.
When did you have this argument?
The argument happened on 3/23.
On the day the car payment was due?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Now, how much did you put it down as a down payment?
I put $1,000 down.
Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. So, Miss Overby, this romance lasted 4 weeks after you purchased the car, correct? Oh. Now, let's say that he used the car for an entire month.
Correct.
And the car payment was
$37.38.
And you acknowledge that you used the car for the whole month?
Yes, correct.
Well, do you think it's fair, Miss Overby, that he should be out his $1,000?
Considering the trauma that I've gone through, the vandalism to my car.
We'll get to your counterclaim in a minute.
Okay.
Let's forget counterclaim for a second. Let's talk about his case. You think it's fair?
I do, considering he used the car for the whole month.
But what if, Miss Overby, we did what would be a common sense thing and say to Mr. Carter, look, you used the car for a month, and the car payment for that month was $337. So I'm going to deduct the $337 for your use of the car, right? You couldn't rent a car for less.
Yes.
And I'll give you the balance. Are you following me?
Correct, yes.
Would that be fair?
Yes.
Now, when you broke up that evening, according to what I've read, you came home and found him loading his stuff into this new car.
Correct.
And it was your intention to take the car.
Just to take myself back to a location in Boston.
And what did you intend then to do with the car?
I talked to her before. I said if she wanted to keep the car, all she had to do was just return my deposit, or if not, she could go down and transfer the lease into my name. You know, that way it would free her up. But she chose just to want to take the car and go.
You think it's fair, don't you, that you paid for something, some part of that car?
Yes.
Okay. Bird, I'm going to try to work this machine now, you know.
Okay.
This may take a little time. This is not my strong suit, this calculator machine. Ah, 663. Did it. Okay. So, according to what I see, sir, that's $663 that you owe her. Now, you have another small amount of money that you say you spent on this car, and that was to register it.
Registration, but she didn't put anything in.
Okay. And how much did it cost you to register the car?
Like $220.
Show me.
That one, she has it because it was in her name. So all the registration is in her name.
Did he register the car?
He registered the car.
Did he pay for the registration?
He offered the money to me. He gave this money to me as a gift. He said in order for us to do anything together as a couple, he wanted us to be a strong couple.
Why don't you just give me an answer?
Yes,
he paid the $220.
Yes, he did.
Okay. And I'm going to give you credit, sir, for the $220 you spent to register the car, because there are some interesting lessons here. One of them is, you don't buy things jointly unless you're married, because courts get irritated if they have to resolve these things between people who are foolish enough to try a living arrangement and then buy cars together and houses together and credit cards together, and then we're asked to take this mishmash and make it right. There are more important things we have to do in courts. You understand that? Next time you decide to live with somebody, keep it separate.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
He put a knife to the back of my neck and said, if you're going to kill me, he said, let me give my son a last kiss goodbye. I was begging for mercy.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Ronald Carter says his former live-in girlfriend, Catherine Overby, owes him for a down payment on a car. Catherine is accusing Ronald of kidnapping her at knife point.
Now, let's see what kind of a bad person you were on the night you broke up, because Miss Overby says that her counterclaim is a serious one. Is that right, Miss Overby?
Yes.
Tell me what happened.
I was at work. Mr. Pickett had bounced a check to me on behalf of my son due to his non-payment of child support. This is my son's father.
What are you doing sitting over there, sir? I mean, what are you doing here in court?
The initial broke up instigated between those two, which trapped me in the middle.
Sit down. Sit down. Okay. He's your child's father. He bounced a check. What happened with him? March 23rd.
I got home from work that evening at 10 o'clock. Ronald was coming down the stairs with bags of stuff and putting it in the car. I said, Ronald, I said, what are you doing? He goes, I'm taking the car. And I said, you can't just take the car. That's considered auto theft. And he said, I don't care. He said, until I get my $1,000 back, I'm stealing the car. I told him, I said, listen, I said, he's acting completely irrational. I totally believe to this day, Your Honor, that this man has an anger problem. And he needs to deal with it because it's very dangerous. I went to the ATM.
Just a second.
What is she talking?
Just a second. So he said he wanted his $1,000, and he was taking the car until he got his $1,000. And you believed he was irrational. But you got into the car with him anyway.
Yes, because he
Right.
was threatening to steal the car.
All right. Car is a car. Your life is your life. You're supposed to be smart, but you got into the car. And you got into the passenger seat of the car.
I got into the driver's seat of the car at that point.
Well, you didn't end up in the driver's seat.
Correct.
Because he got into the driver's seat, according to your complaint.
Correct.
How did that happen?
I was driving down a highway in New Hampshire called 93.
You were driving?
I was driving at this point. He put a knife to the back of my neck and had control of the wheel and insisted to me to pull off at exits. This man had a knife to my neck. He made me pull the car over. He told me to get out of the car and move to the passenger side, which I didn't. I switched seats within the car. And then he drove.
Where did he drive to?
He drove to his mother's house in Roxbury, Massachusetts.
Okay. Were you talking while you were doing this drive? Were you talking about your problems?
Right.
Were you talking about your problems, Miss Overby?
Yes, we were talking about our problems.
Were you talking about the relationship and how it didn't work out? Were you talking about your son? Were you talking about your son's father?
I was talking about how I wanted to go home to my son. I said, if you're going to kill me, I said, let me give my son a last kiss goodbye, because without me, he has no one.
But were you talking about anything else other than that, Miss Overby?
I told him that I said, you're completely acting irrational. I said, I want to leave. I said, I don't ever want to see you again. I said, stay away from me. Don't come near me. I was begging for mercy.
Okay. So then you get to his mother's house, right?
Correct.
And he takes his stuff out of the car?
Yes.
And according to you, he took the keys to the car, too?
Yes, he never came back with my keys, Your Honor.
So what did you do?
I waited outside for about 10 minutes to see if he might come back. Then I decided I would knock on his mother's door. His mother came out probably about 15 minutes later. She said Ronald wasn't there, but kindly let me into her house so I could call AAA that night.
Why did you take the car keys, Mr. Carter?
Because she tossed some of my CDs, so I tossed her car keys.
What do you mean she tossed some of your CDs?
The CDs that I had in the car, I was taking with me. She was like throwing the stuff out of the car, so I threw her keys down.
Did you take any of his CDs and throw them out of the car?
I gave him all of his stuff back.
That's not my question. My question
no,
was...
I did not, Your Honor.
Yes, you did. You see, put your head down. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I gave him all his stuff, but I threw him out of terror.
You threw them?
Right.
So you threw his CDs on the ground?
Correct.
And then he took the car keys and...
I tossed them.
Where'd you toss them?
Like, it's like, I guess like in a yard right by where we parked in front of the house. But she didn't see where the keys got tossed.
Did you have a knife in the car?
No.
Tell me about the car ride, Mr. Carter.
I was driving to my mother's, and she kept trying to, she wanted to work things out, and I kept saying no, and then she like went in some, driving 90 miles per hour, smoking a cigarette, drinking a soda. She's doing everything at one time, so I felt that she was like incapable of driving, so I asked her to pull over, and that's when I completed the ride home to my mother's house.
When did you go to the police, Miss Overby?
I went to the police that night.
Do you have a police report?
Yes, I do.
I'd like to see it, please. Did you tell the police that he slashed the car tires?
Yes, I did.
Why?
Because when I came out to catch the locksmith, the tires to my car were slashed. I also have a AAA report, too.
Can I see it, please? Mr. Carter, did you slash her tires?
No, I did not.
Who slashed her tires, sir? It's much too coincidental.
That's a story that she made up.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
When she went out to wait for AAA, she found the tires slashed in her car. Who do you think did that?
You just say she didn't slash the tires.
Because you would have to be an idiot to do that.
Well, you don't know, Catherine.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Ronald Carter claims ex-girlfriend Catherine Overby owes him $1,000. Catherine says Ronald assaulted her with a knife.
Oh, Mr. Carter, let me tell you something, sir.
Yes.
I believe that there's a little truth in what both of you are saying about what happened that night. I do believe, Miss Overby, that there was more of a discussion in the hour that you were traveling to his mother's house than just how terrified you were. I do believe, however, Mr. Carter, that you slashed her tires, or you knew who did. Do you want to know why, sir? It's too coincidental, and because the AAA report indicates clearly that the tires were slashed once they got there. The initial report to AAA was that she needed somebody to respond because she had no keys. That telephone call was made from your mother's house,
Yes,
right?
correct.
And you were not there.
No.
But you were somewhere.
Yes.
And then when she went out to wait for AAA, she found the tires slashed in her car. Who do you think did that?
I have no idea. But the case that she brought, all charges were dismissed.
Of course they were dismissed, Mr. Carter, because without any proof, beyond a reasonable doubt, which is the quantum of proof in a criminal case, they can't proceed. The quantum of proof here in a civil matter is less than beyond a reasonable doubt. It's just more evidence than not. You rely on your common sense. Do you understand? It just doesn't seem logical to me, sir, that somebody else, during that brief 15 minutes while she was in your mother's house waiting for the AAA to respond, didn't like the car and went over and slashed 2 tires on the car. Where did you go, Mr. Carter, when you went home?
I went to my friend's house.
Did you go out the back door?
Out the back door.
Did you have to put new tires on the car?
Yes, I did.
Mm-hmm.
I have a receipt for the tires.
Okay. Just for my own information, what was this initial argument about on the 23rd?
On the 23rd? Yeah. The initial argument was about me calling my baby's father's job. He thought that it wasn't rational for me to call and ask for the money back from a bounce check he had written.
दोस्तों आज के इस व्लॉग में हम जा रहे हैं मेहंदी लगाने लड़की वालों के घर। ये देखें एकदम सब रेडी हैं, पटके शटके लगा रखे हैं, सब ने सूट वूट चश्मे वगैरह और लगा रखे हैं। और ये मेहंदी का सामान है, सब ने लिया हुआ है, एकदम रेडी हैं सब। ये देखें बस में बैठ रहे हैं। अभी मजा आएगा ना वीडियो। मज़ा तो फुल आने वाला है वीडियो पर। मैं एक गुजारिश करना चाहूँगा सिंगल लोगों से कि यार इस वीडियो से आप जितना हो सके दूर रहें, वरना आपके सोए हुए अरमान जाग जाएंगे ये वीडियो देखकर। दिल ही दिल में फिर आप हमें गालियाँ देंगे कि काश हमारी भी शादी होती। तो दोस्तों अभी हम पहुंच चुके हैं दुल्हन वालों के घर। ये देखें ये 3 लड़के हैं, ये एक कमरे में मैं इनके साथ छुपा हुआ हूँ। ये अंदर ठहर के प्रैक्टिस कर रहे हैं छुप छुप के कि यार अभी ढोल बजेगा तो हम फिर नाचेंगे कैसे, यहाँ ठहर के थोड़ी प्रैक्टिस कर लेते हैं। और मैं फिर गुजारिश करूँगा सिंगल लोगों से कि यार प्लीज़ मेरी वीडियो से दूर रहना यार, वरना दिली में मुझे गालियाँ बहुत पड़ने वाली हैं यार इस बार। और तो वो कुछ कर नहीं सकते, मुझे ही गालियाँ देंगे। जैसे उनकी शादी मैंने ही रुकवा के रखी हुई है, मैंने ही तवीज़ की हैं। बजा ढोल हर दोस्तों आज के इस व्लॉग में हम जा रहे हैं लड़की वालों के घर। पहुंच चुके हैं, यूँ समझो गली में हैं और रात बहुत है यार, अंधेरा भी बहुत है, इधर लाइट भी नहीं है। तो हम जा रहे हैं मेहंदी लगाने, बड़े ज़ोर शोर से ढोल वगैरह भी होगा, डांस भी होगा। तो हमारे साथ जुड़े रहेगा इंशाल्लाह, बहुत ही मज़ा आने वाला है यार इस व्लॉग में, फुल डांस होगा।
शाबाश मेरे शेर, मुगेम्बो खुश हुआ।
गानी शादी में अब्दुल्ला दीवाना यार, इसके काम चेक करो कि बोगेम्बो खुश हुआ। मुझे पता है इसने बारात पे पैसे लूटने इसलिए खुश है। इसे बोलो कि आज बारात नहीं है मेहंदी है पागल। हमें जाने दे अभी, चल बाय बाय, अल्लाह हाफिज। यार पिछले व्लॉग में हमने एक बात बोली थी कि सिंगल लोग ये वीडियो ना देखें। मैंने इसलिए बोली थी कि मुझे पता है उन्होंने ये वीडियो देख ली होगी, अभी उनके सोए हुए अरमान जाग गए होंगे ढोल की आवाज़ सुन के, और वो सोच रहे होंगे कि हमारी भी शादी होगी और हम भी एक दिन ऐसे ही एंजॉयमेंट करेंगे। यार क्या खाक आपकी शादी होगी, काम करने का नाम नहीं है, सारा दिन पबजी खेलते हो और सोचते हो कि हमारी भी शादी होगी, हम भी ऐसे एंजॉयमेंट करेंगे। बोलो जो दिन कदे नहीं आना पुत्र।
एकदम इन्होंने वक्त बदल दिया, जज्बात बदल दिए, जिंदगी बदल दी। ओ भाई मारो मुझे, मारो मुझे, मारो।